before, about 20 minutes in. That wasn't real smart. So I also wanted to let you guys know that on our Facebook page, I do have Jeff Watson's, when Jeff Watson was here, I have that loaded up on our Facebook page. Hey, Heather. You can get online, you can see that. It's really good. It gives you a great example of, you know, what we've been doing. I've been hoping that people would get on and see just the incredible quality of our meetings now. So you are at Sonrisers this morning. We're so glad to have you. If everybody would mute themselves except for Tom, that would be awesome. I just want to say that I was thinking this morning as I was getting ready, thinking to myself, you know, there's something unique about people that get up first thing in the morning, like early in the morning and get started. There's something unique about them, about their success rate, about their walk with God. There's just something different about that. And it's really cool just to know all the people that are in this group, that we all have this in common, that we are, early bird really does get the worm. It's the truth, it's the truth. So, Tom, I'm gonna let you get started.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I just want to say I am just so blessed to be a part of the Sonrisers group. I said we just have so many great people and who go up and beyond what you would think would be just normal. I said last week after we had the meeting, you know, one of our members sent me a private chat about wanting to ask me something, and I thought it was going to be completely business related, but it was something about, you know, helping the poor and those who were downtrodden. And I was just so moved by their actions and their willingness to help others. And so from that time of last Friday, the lesson I developed this morning was on out of Luke, the 10th chapter, and it was concerning the Good Samaritan. So I'm just going to read a couple of verses here concerning this. And it says, on an occasion, an expert of the law stood up to test Jesus. He said, "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus said, "What is written in the law? How do you read it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." Well, we know through grade school or high school that "and" is a conjunction, and it's one where when Jesus says all of this, when you add these together, each of these are equal. And notice what he says: love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as thyself. So all these ands are conjunctions that's adding everything up to the same weight, so that what is on the left is equal to what is on the right. And Jesus continues the story. He said, "You have answered correctly. Do this and you'll live." But the attorney, the lawyer, wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" And that's really what the thought I want you to think about this morning is, who is my neighbor? I know Bryan, he showed a picture of his family there, and we seem to have no problem with family, with our children, with mom and dad and grandparents and partners we have in business. That's not something that we ever even think about. But a lawyer asked Jesus, "Well, then who is my neighbor?" And Jesus replied, he said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and when he fell into the hands of robbers, they stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. And notice what Jesus said in his story. A priest happened to be going down the same road. This is a religious person who goes and performs functions in the temple. And the scripture says he went on the other side. The commentary said the real interpretation of this is he went the other way. He saw someone who was in tremendous need, and he went the other way. The priest would have been one that was highly thought of as being someone that's in God's camp and doing everything that he's supposed to do. And he was doing it for God. But he wasn't doing it when it says, and love thy neighbor as thyself. And Jesus goes on, he says, and then he said, so to a Levite went, and he came to the place and saw him pass by on the other side. So the Levite from the tribe of Aaron, he didn't do anything. But Jesus said, but a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him. He went to him, even though he was beaten and bloodied and everything else. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, took him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Jesus asked a question: which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. Commentaries says that the 2 silver coins that he gave would either have paid for 30 days or 60 days. So it wasn't one where he just paid for another day. He left enough funds to pay for either 1 month or 2 months for this person to recover. And he also said, when I come back, if there's any other expenses, I'll do that. So for me, I mean, it talks to my heart about, yeah, maybe I'm a good property manager, and maybe I'm a good dad, and maybe I'm a good grandfather. And those are the things I really work hard at. The question I want to ask us is, what about our neighbor? No, not the ones who live around you in your community, about those that Jesus talked about, how a Samaritan who's hated by the Jews, and the Samaritans hated the Jews also, but when you saw someone in need, he had compassion on this person and went to him. And you know, guys, in life, things have to be sometimes where you have to get down dirty and find people where they are. And they may be bloodied and beaten, and life itself has turned its back on them. And these are the people we have to reach down, not to pick up, I mean, not to give them a hand, but to get down where they are, help them, to lift them up. And that's one where that's not something we think of all the time. We probably think of it more now because of the virus and unemployment and food banks and the food and all of the other things, with people not having money to buy grocery, pay their utility bills, pay their rent and everything else. And all these things are things that people that are around us. And so my encouragement this morning for me is that I can't be like the Levite and the priest, that I don't want to get this blood on my clothes. I don't want to take a chance that if I help this person, something bad will happen to me. I have to have the understanding is that Jesus said, if I love him, then I have to love my neighbor. And Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Whatever you can do for you, have that same compassion to do it for others. Because this is really the great commandment. Love the Lord your God and love your neighbor. So I mean, these that Jesus said are where all the law and the prophets hang on. Love God and love your fellow man. And so that's my encouragement this morning is there's always going to be that need. And it's how much of you believe that you can participate in to be able to help others. Let's pray. Holy righteous Father, thank you for examples that we see daily about others who have seemed to go into extreme positions and doings to be able to lift someone else up. Let those examples that we see and hear about and know about help us to increase a depth within ourselves that we are the bearers of good news, and that we are the bearers of good things, and that we have no problem, Father, giving what you have blessed us with to others, knowing that we're not looking for them to repay us, but Father, you said, I will repay you for what the good and the sacrifice that we make. So Father, just give us that spirit of willingness to do unto others as we would have them to do unto ourselves. And we do that. We lift you up, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that,
Amen.
Tom. You know, it's since all this has started, this Black Swan event has started. It's really funny. I have seen both ends of the spectrum. Like I've seen people be really patient and jovial, standing in line, and really helpful for people and to others. And then I've seen the other extreme where people have been just, so on edge and pushy and nasty and just mean. And it's just been a complete opposite. I haven't seen a whole lot of in between. I've seen the extremes. I don't know if other people are experiencing that either, but I have to tell you this. On Easter, we did a little family parade in our cars. We decorated our cars with Jesus is risen, and my son wrote God's not dead on the back of his truck, and we drove through neighborhoods beeping our horn and raising Cain because Jesus is risen on Easter morning. And it was fun, and we thought we'd rinse our cars off at the end of the day, but we never did. It kind of started drizzling a little bit, and we just never did it. Well, both of us still have all the writing on our cars. And I can't tell you how often I still get people that beep and they'll wave, and some people roll down their windows and, just give you the thumbs up and stuff. And it's gotten both of us so excited that we can't take it off our window. So, Larry Gowen said something to me back in 2000, I guess it was 15, when Trump was first running for the presidency. He had stickers on his car, for Trump. And he said to me, I find it really unusual that I'm willing to put a bumper sticker for Trump up on my car, but I don't have the nerve to put something about Jesus on my car. And he said, that's really self-convicting. He said that to me. I said, you know what, Larry, you're right. That's something that I really haven't thought about either. And I keep having that statement in my mind with this Jesus thing all over my car right now. It took me 4 years to have that, written on my car from when he said that, but it's on there, and I just don't know that I can take it off. It's kind of cool. And that was just a wonderful share that you had with us. I really appreciate it. And I wonder how many people on here, when you said that the word and is a conjunction, I started thinking, conjunction, junction, what's your function? Everybody remember that? The cartoons on Saturday morning? Sorry, brought back memories, and I haven't been able to sing for you for a while. So there you have it. So now it's time for Bryan Maddex. He's getting ready to get eaten by his rabbits. Bryan, you are muted, my friend. We need to unmute you. I love the rabbits. I have to tell you that one time, I forget what was going on in your life, but we were bringing food to your house. You had one of your sons, I think, was in the hospital.
Yeah, Chase was in the hospital for 10 days with pneumonia last March.
That's right. And I remember stepping into your house to because no one was home, and you told me where to go in, and I opened up the door and I set down this casserole, and I looked at the couch and I see, wow, that's a really cool throw pillow. And then I got closer and I thought, no, that's like the biggest cat I've ever seen in my life. And then I got closer and it's this, y'all can't tell how huge these rabbits are, but what do they weigh, 50 pounds?
They're like between 12 and 15 pounds. Yeah, they're big.
They're huge. They're huge. You know, I've been talking for the longest time, especially since we've been online, about how blessed we are to be able to go outside of our network, outside of our state, to be able to bring just incredible people in to share with us. And I don't want people to forget how blessed we are to have the depth of knowledge of people that are right here on this screen and in our own backyard too. Bryan has always been so willing to share his knowledge, and he's definitely one of those research geeks that knows a lot of good stuff. And you always have your thumb on the market. And I think the company that you're working with too, that AmeriFirst, is really good about disseminating what they know to you as well. So thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us this morning. The floor is yours.
Hey, that's awesome. I do like to know what's going on in the market, and I like to kind of try to think about what this audience would want from that knowledge, right? Like, how does it affect this group of people, and what things can I share? And I do try to really keep track of trends and know what's going on in housing, and our company does a great job of trying to be forward thinking. And about a year and a half ago, we kind of put some things in place, and our company said there's going to be a separating move. There's going to be something that's going to come along in the mortgage industry, and we're going to be prime to make a separating move. And we didn't know it was going to be called COVID, right? Like, that's not what we thought. Everybody kind of thought there was a recession coming, and it might be in 2020, but it'll probably be by 2021. And then this thing just jump started the crap out of that recession. And it's probably going to be called a depression here, I would imagine. So, you know, when I think about this group of people and what's going on, I just kind of pay attention to different things that are happening. And I don't know that everybody is paying attention to those things. So I've heard wonderful people like Wendy Sweet, and I've heard people like Darren Brocklebank and other people say, hey, we're going to be ready to buy houses because, you know, during the next crash, right? And I think, you know, when we talk about like, what's the next crash, we just came out of a real estate crash, right? A bubble in real estate. But that bubble was created by such extraordinary circumstances that we hadn't seen since what, the 70s or 80s, since last time real estate had really taken a downturn in values. And I've not been saying that real estate's going to get cheaper. I've been thinking mortgages are going to get cheaper because we're going to go into a recession, and normally they fight recessions with lowering interest rates. And that happened. We've hit historic lows on interest rates, but we're not seeing real estate values going down. But there's some headlines that I've been paying attention to, and I thought I would just kind of share, and hopefully we can just have a discussion, right? And think out loud about what the market's doing and how this might affect. I've been in retail banking since '96, but I didn't do specifically mortgages until 2013. The end of 2013, I switched to mortgages. So I shifted where my mind paid attention, right? So I worked in retail banking, but I wasn't an investor in the early 2000s. I didn't pay attention to the real estate markets because I wasn't directly involved in retail banking. So this is new to me. These different trends and things that have happened, and I kind of got into mortgage at the bottom of where real estate was, and it was kind of picking up, and we've been seeing values increasing for a long time. But I still don't think we're going to see a massive drop in value. I don't know that we're going to see that, but a couple of headlines that stuck out to me is that we have 7.3% of all mortgages are currently in forbearance in 4 weeks. We've seen the number of homeowners filing for forbearance increase drastically. So as of, I think, 2 days ago, we had 3.8 million homeowners in forbearance, which represented $841 billion in principal balances.
Wow.
And there's it's not a shocking part of that stat, but 10.5% of all FHA and VA loans are in forbearance. right? That's the harder hit sector of the market. Lower down payment, people usually with not as good credit. So it makes sense. And then Fannie Freddie, 6.1% of Fannie and Freddie homes are in forbearance. So just kind of talking about that. Now the CARE Act, what that did really quickly was it changed it so that people could right away, instantly stop making payments, not have it reported negatively on their credit. What forbearance technically is it allows you to skip, and not skip is the wrong word. It allows you to delay 3 payments. So if we do math on forbearance, this is how the laws are currently written. The math on forbearance, let's say you have a $1,000 monthly payment and you call your bank, you say, hey, I can't make my payment. And they say, okay, no problem. We'll give you 3 months. So you skip this month, next month, and the following month. You skip 3 payments. That's $3,000. Well, guess what happens on month 4? You call your bank, or actually your bank calls you and says, hey, forbearance is over. Time to pay the piper, right? And they go, okay, how much do I owe? Well, you just skipped 3 payments and your 4th payment's due, so we need $4,000. That's forbearance. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. I thought I could just put it at the end of the mortgage because that's what the news has told me. No, not yet. Now that might come. There are going to be some policy changes to all the different investor guidelines, and they've already started talking about how can they ease this pain. So current forbearance, you have to follow a cascading waterfall of supports, basically. They start with skip 3 payments and then make them up. Well, that doesn't work for me. I still need more help. Okay, skip 3 more payments. All right, so now you're $6,000 deep. 7th month, you owe $7,000. So you call your mortgage company. I don't have $7,000 because I didn't have $1,000 for the last 6 months. I certainly don't have $7,000. It didn't magically grow. So now you have to start off with the top of the script. All right, well, what if we take those payments and we spread them out for 6 months? You just pay double payments for 6 months. Well, now I'm paying $2,000 a month. I couldn't afford $1,000 a month. I probably can't afford $2,000 a month for 6 months. All right, well, what if we take it and we spread it out over a year? Okay, that's still $1,500 a month for a year, right? So this is what's happening to all these 3.8 million homeowners. Guess what you can't do when you're trying to recover forbearance? You got $7,000 bill. Guess what you can't do?
Refinance.
Can't refinance. Can't pay off bad debt with a refinance. So you've got a lot of homeowners that are going to be stuck or going to be not able to take advantage of the CARE Act. We're going to see casualties. There's just not a way around it. Now, there's a lot of money being spent trying to keep businesses in business and homeowners in homes. Those are the 2 main functions of all the stimulus we see, and supporting all the big, huge companies because they all took a little bit too. But what's going to happen in 6 or 12 months when people are trying to unwind out of forbearance? I do think there will be an opportunity in real estate, right? Like you can't have this mass number of people unemployed, 30.5 billion or million people, not billion, probably globally billion, but in the US we'll call it 30 million people unemployed in 6 weeks. That is staggering. So, this is just a discussion. What happens? All these people, now the guidelines, right? They say you got to pay it back. So what FHA said is we're going to allow a partial claim. FHA basically insures mortgages in case of foreclosure. They insure the bank. So the bank can make a claim against FHA to get paid back on a foreclosure situation. So what FHA said is what we want to do is allow a partial claim against that FHA insurance to a servicer. So I'm a servicer. We service FHA. You go into forbearance. You come out of forbearance. You don't have $7,000. You say, how can I help? Let's spread out the payments. That's not going to help. Let's spread out the payments longer. That's not going to help. Let's re-modify your whole loan and kind of reassess what your payment's going to be forever. That's still not going to help. All right. So here's the last thing that didn't exist 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. Let's do a partial claim for $7,000, and let's take that $7,000 and create a second mortgage. So you literally are taking that missed payment and putting it at the end of the mortgage. And they're allowing the servicers to do a claim, because servicers, we got to pay that payment to FHA, even if the client didn't. So there's been some new stimulus that allows the servicers to borrow money to pay the payment to the government, right? And then this partial claim will relieve the servicers of that money. So there's a lot of things in place to keep people in homes, but it's not going to catch everybody, right? So if we've got 3.8 million homeowners in forbearance, and it's going to get worse, right? Like people are going to run out of that $1,200 because they spent all their money on that TV, and they're not going to have it.
19-year-old son.
So I do think that there might be a buying opportunity in 6, 12, 18 months. I think we're going to see some fallout.
So it's really interesting that you're talking about that. I agree with you, and I think that's what Darren and I have been alluding to as well when we were talking about, there's going to be properties to buy, because we see that coming down the pike too. The other thing is how this is affecting small businesses and on the business side, or in even medium-sized businesses. You said that there's money out there for businesses to borrow to be able to make that $7,000 payment that you're talking about in the lending world. I don't know if you're referring to that new Main Street loan that's going out. Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't read deep into that, but this is part of the CARE Act, specifically for servicers to borrow on, because that $841 billion in principal balances, that's got interest payments due every month.
Yeah, and so that's the other thing that I think people don't realize, is that the government saying, oh, hey, we're going to give you these loans and let you get set up so that you can make all these payments. They're doing that for the small business and the mid-sized business as well. But we actually calculated what it would cost for us to do this 4-year loan at the interest rate, which is up to 6% now on that. It's like a $70,000 a month repayment. And we're calculating, well, if we borrowed this and we used this money to continue to do business, what's it going to cost us to pay it back? They are almost setting it up so that, hey, we'll give you this money, but just like you're talking about in the forbearance, the repayment part of it just puts you out of the league to be able to even pay it back. So although they're giving us help, it doesn't necessarily turn out to be help that's going to make a difference for us. We're better off not touching it and just muddling through and pushing forward on it. That's what we're saying. And so I think there's going to be a lot of businesses taking advantage of this as well, small business and mid-sized businesses, and they're going to get stuck, not be able to pay it back, and we're going to see the same fallout with businesses that are trying to recover on this too. So how's that going to affect the economy?
Well, if you look at the payback of the loans and the forbearances and the stimulus checks and the unemployment, how many investors don't have the means, and they don't qualify for these special CARE Act, and they don't qualify for the business loans, right? You got 5, 6, 8, 10 rental properties. What percentage of those people? 30 million unemployed, right? 20%.
Right.
So I would think that 20% that's unemployed has a disproportionate high rate of renting. So now you've got a whole lot of landlords that are not getting payments, right? And there's no stimulus for that small investor. There is no extra help.
Right.
So there might be some other opportunity there.
That's why cash is king. Seller
cash
financing.
Is king.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, man. So I looked at a couple of reports from Fannie Mae, and they predict the interest rates will be lower next year than they are this year.
Wow.
So the Freddie Mac just came out and said that the average interest rate across America was 3.31%, lowest average ever. And Fannie Mae says we think that the average 30-year rate will drop to 2.875 next year.
Oh my goodness.
They also expect the median home prices. Right now, it's existing homes are going. They went from last year to this year. They went from 272 to 275,000. The forecast next year is that the median home price will go up to 279. That's
From
not a
your
drop
mouth
in
to
value.
God's ears. I hope it's true.
Zillow just
I really hope that that's true. Don't lose that thought. I really hope that that's true. I don't see how. Here's how I see it, and I'd love your opinion on this. Is I think that it depends on the price point of the home. I think that the people that are qualifying for these jumbo loans, I don't know how they're going to be able to do it, and I don't know how lenders are going to be able to step up to the plate on these jumbo loans. I'm afraid for the values of properties that are, say, 500 and up. I think in that affordable housing range, I truly believe that they will either stay the same or drop very little for a short period of time once the fear gets out of everybody's brain. What do you think about that?
Well, the jumbo world, liquidity got crushed. All right, so liquidity is the Wall Street money, right? The investors pour into everything. You saw all of these iBuyer programs that were funded essentially from all these, hedge funds that were up buying properties, and then they decided, hey, let's invest in other ways, right?
And so iBuyer is the
OfferPad,
Red Door, all that stuff, right?
All those things, right? Yeah. And they 3 weeks ago they're like, nope, not gonna do it, right? They all pulled out instantly. It was like a drop of a bucket, just gone. And when that happened, the same thing happened with creative funding. So the non-QM world died. There's a couple that are trying to still do some non-QM lending, but they've severely tightened up and they're trying to stay semi-relevant. The company that we wrote with, which is Angel Oaks, they stopped fundings. Like, hey, you have a closing in 3 days? Sorry, we're done. No more funding. We're out of money. We don't have it, right? Well, they just yesterday started advertising again, but it's much different look, and it's a much different
tight.
Feel.
Yeah,
yeah, very
really tight.
And we're not participating with it yet because we don't trust that they have the liquidity to support it. If they get into trouble, they don't mind just backing back out, right? That's not an experience you can lend on. So the jumbo world, same thing happened. There's a lot less investors in the jumbo market. We lost our jumbo products. We had 3 different products we could sell. They're all gone. So when you look at, okay, now financing just became much tighter. That severely is going to affect the sales, because there are some programs out there that have survived, and there's some bank programs that can last because the banks have money. But for we used a bank partner and they stopped their jumbo lending. So you're going to see more and more tightening and pulling back of programs. And I think that is going to affect, for sure. I think that's going to affect the market values. There is year over year, Zillow just put out a report that April 4th, 11th, and 18th, they looked at the median listing price. And April 4th, it was a 1.6% increase from last year. April 11th, it was 0.8% increase from last year. And April 18th, it was 0.8%, or I'm sorry, 0.3% year over year.
So it's dropping.
Increase. So it is dropping. It's still increasing, but the rate at which it increased is really gotten flat. So I think that's what you're kind of seeing. And we don't have more inventory. Right? And I'd love to see if Don is on the call or somebody that can look at the actual inventory levels, but listings is down. Actually, I just found the report. I'll share my screen and show this. How do I share screen again? Here we go.
I just unmuted Don too, so if he wants to, I tried to anyway, it just disappeared. Oh, great screen share, beautiful.
Yeah, look at this. This is Charlotte. Declines in new listings it says it's leveling off, so this is showing good news. But this is the decline in new listings, right? So there's the shutdown, and we just we were down 40% year over year in new listings, and now that's coming up. But this is the busy season. This is when we should see listings happening.
Right. That's when it should be seriously increasing. You're right.
So this is March. We were headed off in the right direction until this thing started to slow us down. 33% increase going into the spring season, and then just tanked. Oh, what I do? Oh, this is the U.S. So that's the U.S. is the same, minus 44%. So we're faring a little bit better than the national average, but that's crazy. There's no inventory. There's no way. I still have clients going into multiple bid situations. Properties are being listed on Friday, multiple bid on for sale or under contract on Sunday.
So Don, can you talk, Don Harris? Let me scroll down. I can't. It won't scroll for me.
Yeah, I'm
there
here.
You go.
I was trying to pull up some MLS statistics to share, but I can't move that fast this morning. So,
not that we gave you any heads up.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. No, the listings and total contracts dropped significantly, but it's just been like the last couple of months. The market was absorbing the houses that were in inventory
Right.
prior to that. I know the number 2 weeks ago was 555 new listings, but 600 houses went under contract in that 1 week.
Wow.
But earlier this week, there were 8,000 houses on the market in the Charlotte area, which is still less than a 2-month inventory. And so I think, restrictions were just lifted yesterday in Mecklenburg on showing houses that are occupied. We could show unoccupied houses, but that's a small minority of the houses. So now that occupied houses can be shown, then I anticipate over the next couple of weeks, a lot of new inventory coming on the market. I have 6 houses myself that I'm going to hit the market with in the next 2 weeks, listings. And as you said, Bryan, I expect those houses to go under contract very, very, very quickly.
Awesome. One of those is mine.
Yeah, but yours is one of those jumbo houses.
So we have a question here, one from Tommy. He's asking if you could pull up Gastonia, but I don't think it's set up that way, is it?
Doubt it. These are the major.
Yeah.
No,
sorry,
I
Tommy.
can't.
Gastonia is just not big enough. Although I am going to find Gastonia today because their nail salons are open. Woohoo! There was another question too about what is QM lending. Not everybody knows. Can you talk about what that is?
Yes, sorry. Bank jargon. So non-QM is a loan that does not fit Fannie Mae general standards. So QM is quality mortgage, and TRID came out and said for a loan to be a quality mortgage, you have to fit these certain parameters. You have to verify income in a specific way, and you have to get debt to income to be under 41%. That is a QM mortgage. Now there's a mortgage patch that has been in existence for a long time, because obviously 41% is limiting. Well, maybe not obviously. So historically, Fannie Mae's allowed borrowers to borrow up to 45% debt to income. And if you're a very good borrower, you've got decent credit scores and decent reserves, Fannie Mae will let you go up to 50% debt to income. The QM laws say 41% is a quality mortgage, but there is a patch that allows you to go above 41% if the client qualifies, and you can show some reserves and good credit and things like that. So the non-QM space are things that can't qualify the same way that a typical mortgage can qualify, right? So your bank statement loan, that's not following guideline to verification of income. You're using a bank statement instead of tax returns. 1 day out of bankruptcy, that would be a non-QM. Another word for non-QM is, oh goodness, why can't I think of this? What was the crappy loans that they used to do?
The ARMs, those
No.
crazy.
Yeah, just the subprime. That's it, subprime.
Yes,
Subprime. Why couldn't I think of subprime? So subprime lending got a bad rap, right? Because, well, there's a lot of banks that don't exist anymore.
Right.
So they came back out with new products. They're called non-QM. They look a lot like subprime looked.
They
but
do.
they are more conservative, right? They don't allow you to go to 100% financing. You need 20% down now. They don't allow you to just say, I make $1,500 a week. They want to see it in some fashion. They want to see a bank statement loan, or a bank statement at least. So the subprime lending did come back more restrictive, but the investments that were the things that were buying those programs, they're not buying anymore. The street is not even buying FHA loans.
Right.
I'll show you how messed up the market is. This is a rate sheet. If you got a 740 credit score, and I'll kind of explain a little bit. Right over here, you see 2.75 is the lowest rate. And if you have a 740 credit score, the goal is to be at 100%. This is a percentage, this price.
Gotcha.
So someone with a 640 credit score, they can pay 1.2 points to get 2.75, right? So that's not unreasonable. It's 1 point to get 3%. And right here, this is free. So if you have a 740 credit score or a 640 credit score, you can get 3.625. So normally you see the lower rates at the most expensive cost, and then they get cheaper as they go down. Well, the rate sheets are so messed up, liquidity is so messed up, and the investor pool is so messed up that it's cheaper to get a 3.625 rate because it's free, right? You don't have to pay anything.
Right.
Than to go get a 4.625 rate. This actually would cost a borrower money to get 4.625.
How can they come up with that? That is I've never seen that. I've never seen that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So I've got clients like right here, this would be about the same price, 100.2, right?
Gotcha.
So this is also free. So I can offer a client, hey, there's no cost to get 5.75 or 3.625. You can choose. Which one do you want?
Unbelievable.
The market's messed up. There's nobody buying stuff. So all these coupons are just, they're displaying very, very irrational. And I used to be able to premium price. And what premium pricing would be is, let's say we've got this 5.5% right here, right? It's at 101.454. I can actually give back this profit, this 1,454, that's 1.4% of the loan. So on a $100,000 loan, if a client takes 5.5, I can offer them $1,400 as a lender credit.
Wow.
Because I premium priced the loan. Well, I used to be able to get 2 and 3% that I could help a client with closing costs, right? But right now I can go all the way up to 6.35, and it's actually less profit in that rate than there is in the 5.5 rate. So it just shows you that the mortgage market is messed up and there's not the products and the availability. So this is why this rate sheet right here is why you saw Movement Mortgage and all these other lenders raise their minimum credit score to 680 for FHA. Well, that affects you guys a lot, right? Because a lot of the houses that you're flipping are going to be that first-time home buyer house. And those buyers, they're having a very hard time acquiring a mortgage. 650 is not a bad credit score, right? That's a late payment. That's one medical bill. That's not a loser. That's not someone who can't pay their bills. But that person can't get a mortgage right now, right? They're having a very hard time in the street. So the non-QM stuff, the jumbo stuff, it's all kind of evaporated. There are still some exceptions and some products out there, but that's going to really start affecting, these listings. They're going to have a harder time getting money. Chase now says you have to have a 700 credit score and 20% down to get a mortgage.
Wow.
They're the largest lender in America.
Well, they suck anyway.
Well, they do.
Said that, but so how do you think that these underwriters are going to look at people's credit when they've been in forbearance, when they've missed a payment because of this COVID? How do you think they're going to look at this, or they've been furloughed?
Yeah, so that question has come up. We're lucky enough to have leadership that's trying to answer those questions early. And one of our co-founders is on the board of the Mortgage Bankers Association. And he has a lot of conversations with Washington and with policymakers that look at guidelines. And right now, we don't know what it's going to look like in 6, 12, 18 months. Right now, the assumption is we just need a letter of explanation. And if you were unemployed, typically FHA says if you didn't work for 6 months, you got to get back to work for 6 months to qualify. That's current guidelines. So what will they say in 6 months about being furloughed? Will they say you have to be back to work for 6 months? Will there be a loosening of that policy? Right now, they are trying to keep the market moving. The Fed is trying to keep the market moving. Real estate is some ridiculous percentage of our gross domestic product. It's a ridiculous percentage. I just heard a stat yesterday. It's something like 0.6%. If the gross domestic product is 2.5% of all the money in the United States, then it's like 0.6% of that.
Wow.
Of the 2.5. It's a huge percentage. So they want housing to work. And policymakers change guidelines for FHA loans, right? A lot of times.
Right.
So will they loosen that? I hope so, because otherwise you're going to have 20% of the population that can't qualify for an FHA loan. That's very restrictive.
Right. Right.
Credit's been paused. It'll just show no reporting data. It won't show negative. It won't show positive. It just is a hole in your credit report. So that part right now should be fine.
So there's another question. I've heard a couple of people mention this too, as because of the way that New York City, Michigan, and I think even New Jersey, they were using drones to make sure people were not infected and far apart. Do you feel that people are going to be moving from those areas down here just because of the way their local governments have been acting? I mean, out in several different states have been trying to get people to rat on each other. Call this number if you see people too close together. Well, what are you seeing there?
It seems like a movie, doesn't it? Holy cow. I have heard that once the restrictions are lifted and that people can list houses and go see houses and go out about their business, that there's going to be a lot of people who are tired of living in apartments. I have heard this, that we may see a lot of people move out of the big city, right? Because think about, like, I've got this little oasis. We got a pool in the back. We are on the cul-de-sac. We've got room and space. We can go out and play basketball.
It has that Bronco symbol in the middle of it, so it's
fantastic Bronco symbol in the center of it. But what about the New York people who are in an apartment? There's no yard. There's no outside. There's your little room, right? And so we may see a lot of people decide that it's time to move out of that shared space. And I think there's going to be a lot of pent-up demand.
I agree.
I think that people are going to want to move away. And I think, you're hearing a lot of talks about the second wave of this virus. We may open things up just to find ourselves needing to shut back down. And I think some country recently did that. They kind of relaxed, and then things started to spike, so they kind of pulled back again. But I think we'll see that. And I think that you're going to have waves of, let's get out while the getting out's good, right? I think if you're flipping a house in that affordable housing section, I personally wouldn't be worried about not being able to sell that house. Right.
I heard this morning, even Ohio extended their stay at home for another 30 days. So I know they're hitting heavy. And then, you've got, right next door to us, Gastonia, said, gave the middle finger to our governor and opened everything back up again, which I'm really proud of them for doing that. South Carolina lied and said they were opening up, but they're not opening up. We're still not seeing really any change, except TJ Maxx said they would open their doors tomorrow. So that's another plus. It's opening up slowly. There's such there's a way to handle all of this. If you want to require people have masks or wipes or gloves or whatever it is, there's a way to handle this and get everybody back to work. I'm hoping that, I wish they would listen to us, but they don't. And I heard something really interesting about somebody was talking about Sweden. They keep throwing up Sweden, saying that, they never really had a lockdown. They just told people, hey, here's what you need to do. And in their culture, they listened to what the advice was and remained open the whole time. And I think we can learn from that, and that there just are alternatives, that changes that we can make on this. So Don says, opening up does not prevent anyone from staying home. Opening up does not prevent anyone from staying home. So what do you mean by that, Don?
It doesn't infringe on anyone. So if you're fearful and you need to stay home, want to stay home, then stay home.
Right.
But those who have a business to run, whose entire life savings is tied up in their business, and a small business that employ 50% of all jobs, have the right to reopen. We just need to do it wisely and responsibly. And that does not prevent you from staying home if you want to stay home.
That's right. That's right. Well said. Well said. So Bryan, having given us all this information, as you have, what do you recommend? What can we do if we're trying to put houses on the market? What can we do to help our borrowers, our buyers, qualify for mortgages? What are things that we can do to help that, if any?
Well, if you look at your bread and butter, Fannie, Freddie, those have not changed at all, right? The guidelines have not changed. There are some banks who have put overlays in place. So I would say the first thing is don't be afraid, because there is lending available. It's just some banks have decided to be a little more stringent,
right,
with their guidelines. Wells Fargo has increased the reserve requirements for self-employed borrowers, right? That could knock some self-employed borrowers out because they don't have enough reserves now. Doesn't mean that they can't borrow. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to. Just means that they shouldn't go to Wells Fargo. So I would say the first thing is there are people looking to buy, right? And now that you can show in Mecklenburg, I bet you we're going to see a string of, we might see a lot of inventory kind of pop up at the same time. If Don's got 6, it's been holding them back, right? How many people have 6 other ones? So I think we'll see some inventory. For the government loans, FHA specifically, you have to hold the property for 3 months. So if you are concerned that you have a more limited buyer pool, because 20% of people are unemployed, hold title for 3 months. That opens up your buyer pool. Now you're allowed to accept an FHA offer. And don't be afraid of the FHA.
That, Bryan?
What's that?
Is there any way around that 90 days?
There is not.
No.
Nope. You have to have held title for 90 days. And then in the first 180 days, if your markup is 50%, so you bought a house for 100 and you're listing it for 200, right? Then you have to buy a second appraisal. The seller has to buy a second appraisal for FHA. That's in the first 180 days. So you have to own it for at least 90. If the price went up by 50%, then you have to as a seller, purchase the second appraisal. So just being aware of guidelines and trying to open up your buyer pool. So maybe you list it before 90 days. There is a way around the 90-day rule, Tommy. It's a hidden hack, right? So you go under contract in 60 days, you get the buyer to put your down payment money. They just can't order an appraisal until the 91st day. You can get the house under contract. You can accept the due diligence. You can accept the earnest money. But what I have to do is I have to get a new contract on the 91st day and use that contract to submit to FHA, so FHA is not opposed. So it's a hack, and it's not really getting around it. It's just getting your house off the market right away. Get some earnest money, right? Make them. They can go through underwriting. You can know that they're a very solid buyer. You just can't have the appraisal ordered prior to 90 days.
And you could allow them to move in, but that's a whole nother can of worms.
You actually should not on FHA, because
Okay.
if you're a tenant, then you have to put down, if you're living in the house less than 6 months, I think you have to put down 15% if you
Ooh,
buy the house that you were renting in the first 6 months. There's some guy, it's a rare guideline. I'd have to go look it up, but there is a guideline for FHA specifically that if they're buying their house in the first I think it's 6 months of occupancy, then they're not able to put 3.5% down.
very
So
interesting.
I would not recommend that for FHA.
Okay. See, you learn something with everything. So Adama has been extremely patient and has her hand up. What you got to say, girl? You got to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I was wondering what what your credit score is for VA, Bryan, and also, do you do any loans in other states like Virginia?
Good question. So VA allows for down to 500 credit score, and we will participate in that. So I can go down to 500. Now, under 600 for VA, it's extremely hard, and you've got to have good reserves. But bad things happen to good people, and I've closed several loans under 600. I've closed 550, 530, 520. It's hard, but it's possible. FHA is the same. You can go down to 500 credit for FHA and VA. And it's a manual underwrite for VA. So it's just, it's a more limiting debt to income picture. And we're not going to do it if we don't see really healthy reserves. We want to see a 401k or an IRA. We want to see something bad happen to a good person. We don't want to see a slacker just decide to buy a house. Right? If you're not used to paying bills, we're not going to get you a loan. But if you're a good person and something bad happened, you can get a house still if the right situation.
Right.
Other states, I'm in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, and Michigan. I'm not in Virginia, but I have a coworker in Raleigh who is licensed in Virginia.
Awesome. What about the city assistance money that's out there, Bryan? Are you still seeing that?
Yeah, I'm glad
open
you
and
brought that
available?
up. There are some city-specific programs, like Rock Hill has a city program. Fort Mill has one. Gastonia has one. There are some little city down payment assistance programs, House Charlotte, that are still fine and functioning. The statewide programs are all basically, in my opinion, going to have to shut down because Freddie and Fannie have said, we will allow you to sell a mortgage if the borrower went into forbearance before their first payment. So think about that. I just bought a house. I just got furloughed right after closing. I can't make my first mortgage payment. Fannie and Freddie said, we will still buy that, but it's going to be a 750 basis point hit, the cost to buy it. So normally there's about 300 basis points of profit in a Fannie Mae loan. So 3% of the loan can be profit. So 100 grand should be a $3,000 profit. Freddie and Fannie just said, we're going to charge you $7,500 to sell that loan to us.
Ouch.
And there was $3,000 in profit. So that's a loss, right? So the bond program specifically, they operate on profits. What they literally do is they increase the rate. So instead of there being $3,000 in profit, there's $5,000 or $6,000 in profit. So they're literally creating extra profit to create the down payment assistance that they're giving. So you get that with an increased rate. Today, rates are around 3% for conventional loans, and a down payment assistant, North Carolina Housing, is at like 4.125. So they've created a lot of extra profit so that they can fund the $8,000 program or the 3% that they're going to give the buyer. Well, guess what? That buyer now goes into forbearance. Freddie says, okay, we'll still buy it, but now we're going to charge you. There's no profit for this program to exist.
Right.
So there's been 2 states that have already shut down their programs. We already will not participate in the North Carolina program because they said they won't buy our loan if the client is unemployed. They're going to re-verify employment. We verify within 5 days of close. They're going to re-verify when they buy the loan. They don't have to buy the loan for 60 days. So we close a loan. Unemployment has racked it up 20% in 6 weeks, and they may not buy it for 8 weeks. So what's the percentage of people that we just closed that are going to become unemployed before they buy it? So if
Right.
they recheck employment and they're not employed, they won't buy it from us. Well, this is how mortgage banks work.
Right.
I don't have grandma CD money. I got to borrow off of a line of credit to fund this loan.
Mm.
Then I got to sell the loan to get my money back so I can lend again.
Yeah.
So if
That's
I
how
have
we
a
do
bunch
business.
of, exactly, right?
It is.
So-
It is. Yeah.
So if I write 50 loans to a down payment assistance program and they don't buy those, I can't sell it. So that eats up my line of credit. Well, if I don't have a line of credit to lend, I'm out of business.
Right.
I don't have grandma city money.
Right.
So we're not gonna risk our families to get these down payment assistance programs. It's too risky. So we've cut
Right.
off more states than we haven't, and the state programs themselves are putting pauses. They're stopping, and I think we're going to see that increase.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. Bryan, as always, you are you're full of it. You're so full of information. It's amazing. It's amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to do the research that you've shared with us and sharing with us what you have. We really, really, really appreciate that. And how can people get in touch with you if they need to do a loan or refer their clients? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. My cell phone is always best, which is, I'll put it in the chat. It's 704-246-3833. We're doing purchases still in about 3 weeks, but our underwriting is getting more and more backed up because all these refinances that we started in March, all their appraisals came in, so they're all going back into underwriting. It's busy, and I've got 2 rescue loans. I love rescuing loans when another bank says it can't be done and it's just a bank overlay. I love those. So I've got 2 going right now, and we're going to close those probably in about 2 weeks on one of them and 2.5 weeks on the other.
Wow.
So we can rush things, but we have to be like on the 2-week one, the appraisal is done. I'm transferring an appraisal. So I don't have to wait for the appraisal. I can just go into underwriting. And
Right.
underwriting is about 3 to 4 days on a purchase. It's about 7 days on a refi. So we can close quickly. If you get offers and it's a 6-week close and you've got holding costs, say, hey, I know another lender that can get us closed quicker. Right. So that's where I can help investors a lot. I'm not really looking to go get an investor who has 15 properties because that's a lot of work. And underwriting is so backed up that underwrite is a 4 or 5 hour underwrite where they can underwrite 5 of my other loans. So I will help. Obviously, I'm not going to turn anybody away, but I'm not out there saying, hey, refinance your portfolio. I like loans, but I don't have the time to do all of that. If you got 1 or 2 properties, let's talk.
Time for that.
That's right. I'm going to close as many loans as I can already. I'm not begging for loans, right? Like this is the time. This is every mortgage loan officer's dream is lots of equity, lowest rates ever, and refinances are abundant.
That's
I'll probably do 25% more than I did last year by the end of June.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's a crazy time. But purchases, I'm trying to focus on that, and I've got 2 team members who are helping me with a lot of my refinances. So I can still come help. If you're selling a property, that's where I can really help out.
That's awesome. And again, your phone number is 704-246-3833. That's a great way to get in touch with Bryan. I also want to throw out there too, if you have investment properties or your primary property and you have equity in it, you need to hit your small local banks and get a commercial HELOC attached to your house. I'll tell you right now, Bank of York is doing them. Ozark is doing them. People's Bank is doing them. Cash is king, and that's what's going to help you pick up these properties that are going to be coming out for us to be able to purchase. Again, I thank you so much, Bryan. I am talking with Eddie Speed, hoping that he's going to be with us next week. I really, really appreciate you guys getting up early. I don't know if y'all realize this, but last week we actually had 2 people from Oregon on here that actually got up at 4 a.m. to listen to our program. It's pretty cool. Go feed your rabbits. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week. Oh yeah, go get some food from John's Family Restaurant on Westinghouse Boulevard. He's still doing lunch and dinner takeouts. Thanks so much. Y'all have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed.
Have a good one.
All right, y'all too.